smoke till it ain't, till it ain't, till it ain't, till it ain't. I'm building up a wall till it breaks. She hated when I call and it's late. I don't wanna keep you waiting. I hope I never keep you waiting. She think I know it all, but I don't. Welcome to this week's episode of the Mixtape with Scott. I'm the host, Scott Cunningham. This is a podcast devoted to the personal stories of living economists. And this week's guest is Jérémy Lahore. Jérémy is a quant researcher in the volatility arbitrage team at Capital Fund Management and an affiliated researcher in the economics department at CREST. I knew about Jérémy because of a paper he published in the Journal of American Statistical Association with Alberto Abadi on synthetic control. And so I wanted to have him on the show because I've had a lot of people, obviously in academia, and I've had a lot of people also in the tech industry. But what I realized is I had never had someone that had worked for a hedge fund or someone in private equity or finance or anything like that. And I know that that's something that is very interesting to a lot of people. And I also wanted to talk to him more about his his work, that paper with Alberto. So this was a wonderful interview. I really only knew Jérémy by reputation and from knowing him on LinkedIn. And so it was really nice to get to talk to him. And I had some facts wrong about his where he had done his training because the French system is a little bit challenging for me to really follow. And I just had all I really had was his LinkedIn Vita. Because oftentimes outside of academia, the Vita is not something that's a thing that you find on the website. And I had wrong some things. So it was really a nice conversation to kind of get updating my priors as we went along. So I hope that you liked this interview. It was really wonderful. And I think this is a great interview to share with people, particularly people that maybe are students that are very interested in going a quant route and might not think about how an economics route fits very well in that. And so thank you so much for tuning in and for everything. And I'm going to turn it over to these two gentlemen right now. Well, it's a pleasure to have on the show someone who's written a paper that I've been familiar with, but I actually have not gotten to meet in person. And we know each other from LinkedIn. So I'm gonna let you introduce yourself, but it's really nice, Jérémy, to have you on the podcast.
Hello, Scott. Yes, thanks for inviting me. So yeah, my name is Jérémy Lourd. I currently work as a quantitative researcher in a systematic hedge fund called CFM, and it's based in Paris. Yeah, and before that, I've worked for the public sector a little bit in France here. And before that, I did my PhD in CREST in Paris with Xavier Dautefeuille, and I also worked with Alberto Abadi, as you mentioned.
Yeah, well, that's great. I can't wait to get into this. Before we start, I like to do what's called an icebreaker, where we just sort of have a simple question. So this is sort of to start us off. What's a
Yeah.
vacation? What's a vacation that you've gone on? It could be one from a long time ago, or it could be a recent one. It could be a horrible, terrible one, or it could be a wonderful one. But you still have thought about it every now and then recently.
Good question. So I think it was in 2017. I went to Japan for the applied econometrics conference. I think it was the International Econometrics Association or something like that. It was in Sapporo, and then I took like 3 weeks to travel Japan all by
Oh,
myself.
wow.
It was a great experience, like, It's a bit daunting to be all alone in a sense, but you enjoy a lot of the country, a lot of the food. So it was, yeah, I think about that a lot. Yeah.
Oh, wow. 3 weeks in Japan by
Yeah.
yourself. Wow. Had you
Yeah.
been always wanted to do something like that?
Not necessarily, like a lot of people are really attracted to Japan for some reason. I wasn't particularly, but I thought, it's just a good occasion to do that. And I like the country a lot. The food is great. Like food is very important for me. So I enjoyed that a lot, like for 3 weeks.
How
So
were you
yeah.
traveling around? Was it by car or train or what are you doing?
A train. So I think there's this pass that you buy here in France, and then you can take any train you want. Like for
Mm,
the bullet train, you have to book in advance, I think, but that's it. So that was really convenient. Like everything is on time, everything is very clean. So yeah, great experience.
do you speak Japanese?
Not at all, no, no.
Oh, so it wasn't difficult, the language?
A little bit, but you still have a way to make people understand you want to eat, so it's no, it was okay. And
Oh,
also,
wow.
a part of that, of the reason I enjoyed it so much is that it's very relaxing because you travel around, you don't understand what's going on, what people are
Yeah.
saying. So it's very, very relaxing. You're just, all by yourself. So yeah, it
Do you
was.
like doing those trips by yourself? Is that something that you've always sort of been like? You don't mind that kind of thing?
Yeah, no, not at all. Yeah, yeah, I do that from time to time. Yeah, like this
Mm,
summer, I was just for a weekend in Barcelona all by myself.
mm.
Like you go to a museum, you go to a nice restaurant. It's good.
That's great. That's how I am too. I like that kind of thing. It used to be when I was a kid, my favorite thing to do was to go to the movie theater by myself. I
Oh
would go.
yeah,
I loved that kind of thing. Uh, that's great. Oh, now I'm gonna put that on my list of things to do several weeks in Japan. That sounds
yeah,
like that would be fun. So
yeah.
where did you grow up?
So I grew up in France, in a city called Brest in Brittany. So it's a western part of France, like the extreme west, actually. So
Mm,
it's close by the Atlantic Ocean. And I
mm.
grew up there for like 20 years, and then I moved to Paris to study, basically.
You said what's it called? Blast?
Brest, Brest,
Brest? Where's
yes,
Paris? So Brest is on the west coast of France. Where's
yes.
Paris?
So Paris is kind of, I would say, in the middle, but
Mm,
like towards the north. And so Brest is like, 4 hour and a half by train. So it's pretty remote in a sense. It's kind of isolated because I don't know if you see the shape of France, but there's this little pointy thing on the west, and it's like
mm.
right at the extreme. So yeah,
What'd
it's
you like to do as a kid? What were kind of things you could do in that town?
I mean, but I was living in a like little city close to Brest because Brest is I wouldn't say big city, but it's like a medium-sized city for France. Like it's the 20th largest city. And then I was living like more on the countryside. So, you go with your friends, you take your bike. I was playing a lot of, football with my brother. Like,
Mm.
so it would be soccer for the
Uh-huh.
US. But
Yeah.
so a lot of that things, like, you build cabin in the woods, stuff like this. And then,
Oh.
it rains a lot too. So, you play video game during those times. And yeah.
Mm. Mm. Wait, so how did you spend is the ocean very cold or is it warm enough you could swim in it in the summer?
In the summer, but only a few days in the summer. You have to be a bit courageous to swim. Yeah,
Oh, really? It's pretty cold?
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's quite cold. Yeah, yeah. It
Oh.
can be like I don't know. Usually, 10, 12 degrees Celsius, and during the
Oh, wow.
summer, it might go up to I don't know 16, 17 Celsius,
Yeah.
which you can go right, but it's you have to be a bit adventurous, I would say.
Is it beautiful? Did you feel like as a child it was like I live in a very beautiful place?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, near the coast, it's pretty amazing, and also like it's very different. If you go towards the north, there is this a coast that we call the pink granite coast, and it's a lot of the stones are pink, etc. It's very beautiful.
Mm.
You know the sky is beautiful, etc. But then, like with respect to the city, like Brest has been destroyed during the war, and it has been rebuilt very fast. So it's not like the buildings are not very nice. The things are kind of lacking homogeneity in a sense. So I wasn't feeling like the city was beautiful, but more like the landscape and the you know all the
Mm.
nature was beautiful. Yeah, and it was very calm. So yeah.
So you liked that kind of thing as a kid? You liked nature and sort of culture?
Uh, Culture, I don't know, but it was more like, building stuff in the wood. I think I like that. You build your cabins and then you have your little club to go with your friend and you regroup, after school and stuff like this. So that
Mm.
that was the part that I enjoyed. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what did your parents do for a living?
So my dad at the time, so now he's retired, but he was a truck driver, like
Oh.
delivery, but just locally. And then my
Oh.
mom was working in the hospital, but in the administrative services, like, accounting and stuff like this.
Oh, okay. Okay. D d they had always lived in that area or they had moved there from somewhere?
No, no, they had always lived there. So my whole
Oh.
family, they were like farmer before them. And so, yeah, so everybody has lived in this area. Like there's
Oh,
not too
wow.
many people that I know that were coming from outside basically when I grew up.
So you grew up in a town or an area where your whole family lived, your
Yeah,
grandparents and cousins and things like that?
yeah, yeah.
Oh, were y'all all very close?
Not necessarily, no. Not that much, no. It was mostly like my family, my brother and sister, and yeah,
Do you
and then
think, go ahead.
friends from school, etc.
Oh, okay, okay. So how old were your brother and sister relative to you? Are they older?
No, they're younger. They are 3 years younger, and they are twins. Like I don't know how to say it, but false twins we say in France.
Oh yeah, we call it fraternal twins. Okay.
Yeah,
You call it
fraternal twins. Yeah,
you call it false twins?
yeah. Fake twins,
Oh,
basically we say.
false twins. I like
Yeah,
that better. I like that better. Uh,
yeah.
okay. How much younger are they than you?
3 years.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Mm.
So you liked to play football. Is that what you said with your younger brother?
Yeah, yeah. Like
Ah,
soccer. I was playing soccer. Yeah.
were you good?
No, not really. No. I, I mean, when I was a little kid, I did karate, but for quite a long time, like from 6 years old to I don't know 13 or something. And
Mm,
like football is the main sport in France, and especially in my town. So all the little boys they were playing football. I wasn't. I was like doing karate. So I was
mm.
playing in the street, with my friend, and it was okay. But then, when I was a teenager, I thought, oh, maybe I will get into football. So I quit karate. I signed up for football, and it was a nightmare. So like first season, well, I was okay because it was like there was a second team, but then like the next season, it was only one team, and so I was always on the bench. And I think like I hurt my knees at some point, so not a good experience. No.
You weren't good at it, but did you like it? Did you enjoy it, the game, or enjoy being a fan?
Not that much, no. I
Ah,
mean,
okay.
when I was a teenager, I always like doing sport in general and more like the physical activity. But
Mm.
football, it felt like I was starting from, too low. My skills were too low to really enjoy it.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Did
yeah.
you enjoy watching it though? Did you enjoy being like a football fan, like you had a team that you really loved, or not so much?
Yeah, no, at the time I did. I watched a lot of it. I knew all the players. Plus, but I think the effect is very true because we won the World Cup in 1998, like France.
Mm.
And I remember that time, like, very vividly, like watching the final against Brazil. And so it was like a great memory. So
Mm,
from that point, I kind of got into football, etc. But I think like after a few years, like when I was 18, I think I completely stopped watching that. And
yeah.
I don't really watch sport in general.
Mm.
I mean, I do a lot of sports, but I don't really follow. So,
Well, so when you were a kid, what was your favorite thing to do? Like if you could have, if I could have found you in the summer or on the weekend, not high school, but like when you're younger, what was it that really made you happy?
I think yeah, building cabins in the wood, yeah, top experience of my childhood. Yeah.
What's building cabins in the wood? Is that something you're not actually building a building, are you? What is that?
No, but just you take a few I don't know how to say it, but sticks, and you put them all
Yeah.
together, and you try to make a roof, and then you like put some I don't know, some moss or some leaves to kind of protect you, and then you go inside. It was like more the building than enjoying
Yeah.
the cabin. That was fun
Yeah.
for me. Yeah.
Yeah, this is going to make you laugh, but in the United States, where I grew up, we played guns. Where so we would go into the woods and pretend to have guns and kill each other, which now that I say it out loud does sound pretty terrible, but that was what we played was guns with each other.
We used to play that too, yeah, yeah. Or you build swords with sticks and
Yeah,
then you fight each other, stuff like this. I
yeah,
think
yeah,
it's regular kids experience, no?
yeah. Right. Maybe that's more of a boy thing than an America thing then. Okay. Well, what did you
Maybe.
want to be when you grew up, when you were like younger, before high school? What was it you thought, when I grow up, I want to be this? What did you think?
I mean, very young at the time, probably an astronaut or something like this.
Oh,
But he was more like you watch this. We had a show on the national television where there was one guy explaining how science work, etc. And watching it, and especially like the episodes about planet and stuff, it got me
mhm.
interested into that. I had a few books, where you learn about the solar system, etc. But
Mm,
I mean, I was very young, and then, but I don't think after that there was something really, a really clear idea of what I wanted to do.
mm,
I mean, let's say beyond 10 years old, I had nothing. Like some people would say, I really want to be a doctor or something. But for me, I mean, it's going to sound a bit sad, but I think like at around 14, 15 years old, what I really wanted to do is just get out of Brest and do
You did?
something
You wanted
else.
to get out? Why? Why
Oh
did you want
yeah,
to get
yeah.
out?
I felt it was too. I just felt it. I wasn't belonging there in a sense. I mean, there was so much rain, like the weather. Okay, people usually is from Brest and from Brittany, they will defend the weather because people will say, "Oh, it rains a lot, etc." But I think it's actually true, and I felt it was a bit depressing, like all this rain. Because when it rains, you can go outside. You can, there's a lot of stuff you can do easily as a kid, especially. And so,
Right.
yeah, at some point I was like, okay, I think there's something better out there. And,
Yeah.
yeah,
So, I mean, you're saying when you say it rained a lot, you mean it actually rained a lot.
yes, yes.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, that's interesting. I don't think I've ever lived anywhere like that then. So yeah, that's very incapacitating.
Yes, yes, yes. And a lot
Oh,
of wind too, right? It's not just
oh.
rain, it's also wind. So the rain comes in your face, and you're like, oh.
Well, it's interesting though because your whole family lived in that town, and so you wanting to leave must have been a little bit. Was it a little bit out of the ordinary since everyone
Yes,
stayed there?
very much, very much.
Oh, what'd
Mhm.
your
Yeah.
family think when they were they surprised that you wanted to leave, or were they a little sad about it?
Yeah, it was a bit difficult because so my parents didn't have a lot of education. Like basically, my mom never finished high school, and my dad, didn't finish the middle school part. And so it was a bit hard for them to understand, what I wanted to do, etc. Plus, also, I was really good at school, but I didn't know, like what to make of it, etc. For me, it was just like, okay, I want to get out and do something because it was
Yeah.
also a bit hard to figure out what you could do because I didn't have really, a good example of people applying what they
Mm.
learn from school at their job or something like that. So it was a bit blurry for me. I just knew that, if, maybe if I pursue my education, if I go to university, etc., uh, I will have a clearer vision of, what I can do. And then, yeah.
Was it unusual for your high school class then to go to university?
So it was more like the middle school part because I went to middle school to I don't know how to say it, but the school was pretty rough in terms of people were my friend, etc. But there was a lot of fighting, people
Oh,
like smoking drugs, selling drugs, stuff like this. It's not doesn't sound that bad, but people were not really interested in school. So the tough part was like many of my friends they went to vocational schools,
yeah.
and me I went to a normal high school, but I felt kind of out of place there. And so it was a bit hard. And I think it's at that point where I was like, okay, maybe now I need to work a little bit more because
Yeah.
also through middle school, it was very easy to get good grades. But then you get
Mm.
to high school and you're like, okay, yeah, it's
Yep.
easy, but then you have to work a little bit. There's a lot of things
Right.
to learn, etc. So yeah,
Were you so yeah, no, I completely understand. Actually I identify with a lot of that. I grew up in a small town that also had a lot of drug problems and you grow up around best friends, but then as they age, you realize that your paths, well, if you're gonna have to be intentional about your path.
yeah,
If
yeah.
you're not careful, if you're not super intentional, it'll get made, the decision will get made for you.
Yeah, exactly. And it was more a sense of like, are maybe if you look at the adults, you're like, are these people living a life that I think I want to live? And for me, it was no. And, especially you look at TV and also from school, you like people,
Mm,
they are traveling, they are experiencing stuff, etc. And so maybe I can, try to do that. And that
yeah.
would be very interesting. And that felt, really appealing for some reason for me. And I had the chance of, being good at school, etc. So I thought, let's capitalize on that and, make the most of it. And
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. So when you are finishing high school,
yeah,
it also kind of sounds like you, that was something you said was interesting. And I think this is true for me too. You can be really smart up into high school and not try very hard. And then in high
yeah,
school, you have to have other non-intelligent skills like studying.
yeah,
And
exactly.
so
Yeah.
you had that? You felt like in high school you actually rose to the challenge a little bit and worked hard, or no?
Yeah, so first year of high school, not really. And I
Yeah.
felt, out of place with my class. Maybe it was also, just being a teenager. It's just, I guess, a normal experience. But then, so in France, you have a kind of three way to do your high school after the first year. Either you go to this, something that tilts more toward science, something that tilts more toward economics, and something that tilts more toward, literature, etc. And so I didn't like physics, but I liked math a lot. So, and I
Wow.
also wanted to do the economics track because I got to change high school. Basically, it was on the building on the other side, and I didn't get along with. I felt really out of place in that high school because it was a lot of people, who were kind of not from the same social background. So I thought,
Yeah.
okay, this year wasn't great. Maybe I switch to the economic track, and then I can, start fresh, work, and
Mhm.
yeah. And so what happened, I think I remember at one point, there's a French teacher who said, if you don't read book, when you're like 15, 16 years old, basically you're screwed for life. Like you should start reading books now. Consider this, like a classic French teacher,
Right.
lesson,
What
right?
books did you start reading? What books were interesting?
Very good question. So I was like, I didn't like novels at all. So I was like, I'm
Ah,
not going to start reading novels. So basically, I went to the bookstore and I browsed like the economic section. And there was one book which was about financial crisis by John Kenneth Galbraith. And
oh
I
yeah.
said,
Okay.
okay, let's just pick that book. And because my parents, if I said I wanted to buy a book, they would buy it, like no question asked. So
Oh.
that was good. So, I got to read a few economics books and I was like, okay, this is really interesting. And then I started to have economics class. I had a really great teacher and I was like, okay, this is very good. You learn a lot about the
Mm.
society, the world around you, etc. So yeah, it was really
Not
interesting.
just not just mathematics. You're kind of you're learning also like bits of philosophy because I noticed that you have this philosophy uh thing on LinkedIn that you had scored high scores in, or you're interested in
Yeah,
sort of a lot of things.
yeah. I mean, at the time, so yeah. Then after high school, I went to. You have 2 years of training if you want to go, for example, to a business school in France. And for me, the hidden part of switching to the economic track is that it's seen as well, rank educationally. So people will who are very good, even if they don't like science, they will go to the science track just because it's seen as more. I mean, just better in general. But
Yeah.
so then, if you don't do that, that closes quite a few doors for you, especially doing a lot of mathematics in general. So I
Mm,
went to the highest thing that I could do, which was this training to go to business schools. And this, you
mm,
get not just math, but also economics, a lot of foreign languages, philosophy, general knowledge, etc. And
mm.
so, yeah.
So Piketty's book wasn't out yet. Thomas Piketty's
No,
Capital was not yet out when you were in high school.
no. I mean, high school was like, it was the financial crisis, basically, the Great
Mm.
Depression, like 2008, etc.
When does Thomas Piketty's book come out?
I think it's
2013 or
20,
2012 or something?
yes,
Oh,
2012, yeah. And
okay.
2013, I think, yeah, yeah.
So you knew about economics, but it was these older the books you were reading. It was like Gilbreth and along not these current things, right? It was like
No,
at
yeah.
that point you were learning about these older writings.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Oh.
like stuff about, the history of economic thought, etc.
Hmm. So you graduate high school, and at that point, you're going to college. You're wanting to go to the university.
Yeah, so after high school, you have those 2 years of training because then after that, you pass an exam to go to what we call Grande École in France, which
Mm,
are like, schools like École Polytechnique, HEC Paris. I don't know if you heard that names, but you have this particular French system where you train a lot and basically you have no life for those 2 years just to pass those exams and then
mm.
go to these schools. And I did that, but for business schools, basically. So, and
Business
I
schools.
knew, yeah, because I didn't know what I wanted to do. And my parents, they really wanted me to do something where finish, you don't study too long, basically. Like vocational, some type of vocational training
Oh,
or
they were
something.
wanting you to do the vocational.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so I was like, no chance. And then I remember my high school teacher in math, she told me like, so what do you want to do when you like after high school? And I was like, I don't really know. But my parents, they want me to do this. And she was like, yeah, you're not gonna do this. You're gonna do something else. And so
Really?
she kind of gave me the idea that something else could be working for me. And so, yeah,
Oh, that teacher
yeah,
gave you a sense of a different life?
yeah, yeah.
Oh, wow. So tell me about your university. You go to, how do I say it? Lycée de Carichan? I don't know how to pronounce it.
It's a lycée de Kerishan, so it's this part where you train for 2 years for
Oh, that's the one where you trained for two
yeah,
years.
yes, exactly.
Oh, and you had no
And
life. You were just studying all the time.
yeah,
Mathematics
exactly.
and economics.
Yeah, math, economics, foreign languages, and you have like philosophy and stuff like
What did
this.
you
Yeah.
love? What were the classes you really, if you, I mean, you have no life, you're working really hard, but what
Yeah.
was there certain classes you were like, I really like this or I'm good at this?
Yeah, I mean, it was tough because you work a lot, but it wasn't Uh, it's something that I enjoyed in a sense. Like mathematics was, I liked it a lot because there was a lot of mathematics. It was a lot more, advanced than what we did in high school. So I
Hmm.
liked that part a lot. Economics was great. Um, the worst part for me was Spanish, I think. I wasn't very good at Spanish, so yeah.
Oh, did you think about going on to graduate work in mathematics? Because you end up,
No,
I was looking, you have several more class programs before your PhD, and they all
yeah.
say masters. So I didn't understand how this was working.
Yeah, it was a bit complicated because so what happened is that during those 2 years of training, pretty soon, like some people told me, like teachers, they were telling me like you're not gonna enjoy business school, right? So you should
Oh.
like start something else. So the French system can be a bit complicated, but if you do well in those written exam for business school, then you can apply to École Normale Supérieure, which is more, it's closer to university.
Hmm.
So I was like, okay, maybe I can aim for that, but it was like, 10 spot every year. So it's pretty tough to get in. But so, luckily I managed to get in. And then for me, it was economics and management science. And, as I said, because I didn't do the science track, like shifting toward mathematics was a bit complicated. But so
Hmm.
then I did like 2 years of École Normale Supérieure and then went to NSA, the National School of Statistics, where I studied data science and statistics. And that was, like best part of my, university. Like I enjoyed that a lot.
Hmm. What did you like about economics? There's years because you ultimately choose it. So, what was it
Yeah.
about econ that you thought that really captivated you? Because you probably could have done a few different things.
At the time, I think because I started when I was like 16 or 15 learning about economics. To me, the thing that got me into economics was really financial crisis. I thought that was like really pretty fascinating because you're like,
Mm.
okay, people they get a bit crazy about the price of some flour in the Netherlands, and
Yeah.
then all of a sudden they're ready to like to buy flour with the price of a house, basically. And then all of a
Mm.
sudden this crashes and it creates, real consequences for, also people who are very far away from, financial market. And especially, high school for me was like, the end of it was during the financial crisis. So it was, all over the news, etc. And so just in general, the power of this subject was that it was more related to real life in a sense and to understanding more the society around you, etc. So yeah, I think that's what got me into it.
Okay. So, in the United States, the Great Recession was driven by these mortgages, these securities. What exactly is going on in France?
I mean, in France, it was probably just the general recession. In the US,
Ah.
that was probably affecting all like the whole world around us. Financial market probably, not providing the necessary liquidity. People just, retracting, etc. But big banks in France were too, affected by the crisis.
I
So
see.
yeah.
I see.
So,
So you end up, you do these two masters, and then when do you say, I want to become an economist? Like, so when you're making the decision to do this PhD in economics, what's
yeah.
going through your mind? Are you thinking, I want to just get more schooling, or are you thinking to yourself, no, I actually want to be an economist. I want to have a PhD in economics. Because I'm just thinking to myself, if your dad never finished middle school and your mom never finished high school, and you grew
Yeah.
up around people where there was this like ceiling to their imagination, the fact that you would even go to university is pretty radical, but you're going all the way to a doctorate. You must not have known very many people that had even done that, except for your professors.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But then at some point, I mean, also I went to Paris to do that. So you have to make friends, with the people around you, etc. And that becomes like your point of reference in a sense.
Yeah.
And all these people, they have also parents and they have ideas on their own about what they want to do, etc. So that I guess that gives you idea. And then, you're a bit less influenced by your let's say your childhood
Yeah.
background or
Right.
but like I think it's something also very particular about the French system is that there was still some influence from my parents because they wanted me to be a civil servant because then
Mhm.
you have a job stability, etc.
I
So the
see.
thing is I didn't do my I what I did was that I applied after my master's to be a member of the National Institute of Statistics. And then as part of that, I did my PhD. But so I did my PhD kind of on the side, right? I did this,
Oh,
yeah, full year of PhD, first year. And then the three next year, I was actually at the National School of Statistics, but like, managing classes, teaching, telling teacher and
you were
professor,
doing all
where
of
the
this at the
room.
same time? You had a full-time
Yeah,
job and you were in this
yeah,
PhD program?
yeah.
That wasn't common, was it? Other students, were they doing that?
Were a few guys like this, like Christophe Gaillac, who wrote the machine learning for econometrics book with me, was doing the same. Like I was doing the econometrics part, and he was doing the mathematics part. And there was one guy for microeconomics, one guy for macroeconomics, and then one person for finance, one person for sociology, I think.
But they weren't all you were unique for having this full-time job though, right? Having
No,
this
I mean
or was
we,
it common for everybody to have jobs?
we were like it was like six of them, and then the rest were like regular PhD
Oh,
students.
I
Yeah,
see. So there
yeah,
were some people. Okay, okay.
yeah,
Well, so you go to Paris School of Economics, which is a very prestigious university for economics, right?
yeah.
So were you thinking about a lot of different possible? And so, real quick,
Yeah.
When do you start the program? What year?
So you mean the PhD program?
Yeah.
It was September 2015.
So Piketty's book is out by now,
Yes, yeah,
and it was a phenomenon. That was a huge kind of book because it was huge in the United
yeah,
States. So I'm assuming it was huge in
yeah,
Paris.
yeah. So the funny part is that I think I was one of the only students who didn't take Piketty's class.
Really?
Yeah, I was really interested in econometrics. So I took
Ah,
all the econometrics and statistics class that I could get.
yeah.
So yeah. So
But do you think that book made any impression on you when you were thinking about getting a PhD? Because I'm imagining having this huge French public intellectual that's an economist at a PhD granting institution. I would imagine it's having its own effect on your vision. Is that true though?
I mean, for a lot of people, yes. For me, not really, because also I enjoyed a lot statistics and
Yeah.
so the CREST, the department research, they are like really hardcore statistician who don't care about economics and all sorts of stuff. And then there is
Mm.
the economics department. And I was kind of in between. So when I did my PhD, I was a lot more in contact, I would say, with the statisticians than with
Oh,
economics people.
I
So
see. So you were very early on very interested in econometrics. And Paris
yes.
School of Economics has a strong econometrics faculty, so it accommodated a person like you with those natural interests.
Paris School of Economics, not clear, but the National Institute, the National School of Statistics, and say the research
Oh,
department is CREST. And CREST, there's Xavier Dautefeuille, there was Francis Kramars at the time. So it was more here that I felt like doing my PhD there.
but you're saying Paris didn't have as strong of the econometrics group as you would have liked?
Paris School of Economics, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, at the time, there were a few econometricians, but like the real powerhouse in terms of econometrics was CREST. Yeah,
Oh, well, did you apply there?
at the Paris School of Economics.
No, the other one, Crest. Is that what you said?
Yeah, that's where I did my PhD. Yeah,
Oh,
so
I
it's
thought you
like
did it at I thought you did it at Paris School of Economics.
no, so it's a bit complicated how it's labeled. So there is this Université Paris-Saclay, which has
Oh,
absorbed a lot of stuff, but like what's behind it is the CREST, where there is Xavier Dautefeuille, there is Francis Kramars.
oh, I
Yeah,
see. Okay, okay. So that was the perfect fit for you because you really
yeah,
were very, I see.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh, and that's inside Paris also.
Yeah, I mean it's in the south, like the suburb, but yeah, it's Paris. Yeah, yeah,
Oh, so you chose Crest? You chose
yeah.
Crest because you knew even then before the PhD that you really did want to do econometrics?
Yes, yes, exactly. And
Oh,
also because by that time I was a member of the National Institute of Statistics. So I wanted to do the PhD, but my goal, like it was very clear at the time that I wasn't supposed to go into academia. It was good for them to have somebody with a PhD who is a bit more advanced methodologically, but I wasn't
oh,
supposed to go into academia. And so all of this is kind of backed by the National Institute of Statistics. So for them, it was easier if I, do my PhD at that place because everything is linked. All the program, are very linked, and then it's easy for you to move to a real job in a sense to the
oh,
National Institute of
so that was what
Statistics.
you thought too. Even when you
Yeah.
were doing a PhD, you still didn't think I'm going to be a professor because of the way you entered into the program.
Yes.
You really were thinking more of going back there or staying there.
Yes.
I
Yes.
see. Got
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you tell me about your matching with Xavier. And I don't think I've
Yeah.
always said Xavier DeHolfel, but every time other people say it, I know I'm not saying it right. So how do you say Xavier's name? I know him by
So
his papers, but
So
not
it's
him.
Dautefeuille.
Dotefei,
Dautefeuille. Yes.
Dotefei, and it's
Dautefeuille.
Xavier.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
I
So when
mean,
do you
in
first?
France, we
Go
say
ahead.
Xavier, but Xavier is fine, I
Yeah,
think.
right, right. I did. Okay, so Judge Fay. So, when do you first meet him? Is he an assistant professor?
At the time, yeah,
What's
yeah.
the labeling? Do they say assistant professor?
Yeah, yeah, I think so. I think they
Okay,
they they match the title to the international,
I see. Okay.
nomenclature in a sense. Yeah, yeah, he was. So I met him in the last year. He was teaching a class in advanced econometrics, I think. It was stuff
Mm.
like, quantile regression, a lot of stuff like this, like instrumental, like advanced instrumental variable. Yes.
Is he talking about difference in differences when you're a grad student?
No, not at the time. At the time, it was somebody else who was doing that. It was in this class called policy evaluation, and it
Oh, he
was
was.
yeah, it was to a much larger audience, and it was not taught by Xavier. Xavier
It
was
was
more
not
like,
taught by Xavier.
no, no, not at the time, no.
So how did you
He,
end up? Go ahead.
no, I think he got interested into the difference in different stuff a bit later
Hmm.
than,
You're there
when I
from
was
when? Because you graduate what? Like, because you write your paper
2000.
with Abity.
Yeah.
That's after. So when were you?
Yeah.
What years were you there at Crest?
So I started in 2015 and then I like September 2015 and I graduated in December 2019.
2019.
Yeah.
So what's your job market paper on?
So that's the thing. Then I don't have a job market paper because
Oh,
of all of this. Yeah, I didn't have like a single author paper. So because
ah,
I wasn't supposed to go into the job market, etc. But it's kind of a chicken and an egg problem, right? Because you think you're not gonna go into academia. So then, and you also have this whole constraint with your like job that you do for the school. So you don't have a lot of time for your PhD and then you don't do a job market paper. So then you think, oh, I'm not going to go into academia. So
yeah.
it's a bit of a, yeah, it's not like I was into this PhD program targeted toward academia and, so it was a bit of an effort to,
Yeah.
so yeah, no, I don't have a job market paper.
Mm. So what are you writing on? Are you writing things with Xavier?
Right now, no.
No, no,
Uh,
back then when you were
Back
when you
then,
were
yeah, we have a paper. I think it came out in a statistics book, which was about. So it was still something related to the synthetic control, but it was more like related, in fact, to propensity score matching and what people call calibration, where you
mm.
estimate your propensity score not with the logit and stuff like this, but more like you're trying to match the some moments of your covariates between your treated and your control group, which is reweighted. And we made the link between that and synthetic control, but
Oh,
directly finding weights on the on the covariates and not on the individual. So it
oh,
was
that's
like more
interesting.
linking the two, yeah.
Wait, so are you doing when you're in graduate school,
Yeah.
are you already you're interested in causal inference?
Yes, yes, very much. Yeah, yeah. So
Oh,
there was two things that really interested me. So causal inference, because I thought that was kind of, a bit great. Like the paper were really neat. I think it was really like ingenious. I think the ingenuity of, the identification strategy, etc. It was like pretty impressive. And
yeah.
then it was more something that I got interested in a bit earlier, which was selecting your variable. Like, how do you select variable? Because all the econometrics class, they were like, oh, we start from this model and we estimate it. But then I was always like, so how do you know what variable you should put, in your X? And is there a way to make that a bit more automatic, etc.? So I think from that, the lasso had a big impact on me when I learned about the lasso. I was
Oh,
okay, this is pretty cool. But then,
huh.
I learned about all the limits that these tools have. But yeah, at the time, I was like, oh, it's pretty cool. You select your variable automatically.
Yeah, right, right, right. Oh, so you're interested in machine learning and causal inference, not necessarily at the same time, but
No,
actually a little bit at the same time because you're thinking about the selecting of covariates related to causal inference, like panel models and things like that.
yeah, yeah. I mean, and at the time also, there were a lot of paper by Viktor Chernozukov about,
Yeah,
double selection and stuff like this. I mean, it wasn't the double machine learning was a bit later, but all these paper, like the 2012 paper in Econometrica about instrumental variable,
yeah.
this type of paper. So that was, yeah,
So that's
what
what you
was
were interested
hot at
in.
the time. Yeah,
And
yeah.
you were skilled. You weren't just like an applied empiricist. You were interested in and had the skills and the interest in being an econometrician.
Yeah, that's what I really wanted to do. But yeah, it was like the mathematical proofs, they were also like very hard. Like, and I think due to, having a job at the same time as the PhD, it was kind of also taking a lot of time and taking away from being able to really dive into like the
Mm,
subtleties of the mathematical proof, etc. So I did
mm,
some of that, but then I think I wasn't sure, but maybe it was also a maturity thing, but I wasn't sure, this was for me, like beyond the PhD. So
mm,
that was fun at the time, but then I was like, oh, I'm not sure, like how I would have really independent ideas and, you know, so yeah, that was pretty, yeah,
How did
I
you
wasn't
find,
sure.
how was it that you ended up working with Xavier though? Why Xavier amongst everybody? Why did you gravitate to him?
I mean, I think, like he was, I think, one of the best class that I had at the
Mm,
time, and he was also like a pretty young guy, and so that kind of that's appealing to me, right? You're like, oh, there's this guy who's kind of young, he explains things very well, and you're like, oh, okay, that's some guys that probably get along well with, and so yeah, then he was. I think I was one of his first PhD students. He didn't
mm,
have anyone before, at least not officially.
yeah.
So I thought also maybe it's good because he's going to have a lot of time to advise me, and I think that was a good
Well,
move.
so when you're graduating, and this is what you said, this was 2018,
2019, yeah.
2019. So you're graduating, it's the year before COVID. So
Yes.
what did you want to be? What was your what did you hope would be the outcome of the job market in 2019?
Yeah, so same. That was my particular case. Already had a new job, like since like for the past 3 months when I defended my PhD basically. So I was working at the National Institute of Statistics in a machine learning team where it was like building machine learning tools basically to automatize a lot of the production of official statistics. So it was a lot of natural language processing,
Mm,
stuff like this. Yeah.
yeah. So you
So
were
so
thinking,
you
so you had a job. You were going to go back, you
yeah
go back to that job. Because I thought I
yeah.
saw that you end up at a university for a couple of years.
I
No,
mean,
did I?
I was still teaching on the side. Yeah,
Oh, okay,
I was
okay.
still not full
So,
time, but yeah.
so how do you end up working with Alberto Abadi at MIT?
Yeah, so that was in my first year because still of the National Institute of Statistics constraint. They were like, you're not going to go into academia after you finish your PhD, but it's good if you build a good network of people in academia that you can, interact with later on, etc.
Yeah.
And so they were like, okay, we let you do your PhD, but you have to go abroad for a few months. And I
Mm.
was really interested in synthetic control, and I asked Xavier, like, can you send an email to Alberto Abadi, and then like if he can accommodate me, that would be very good. And so yeah,
Well,
Alberto
so
was
when is
kind
that?
enough to
What year is
accept, and
that? What
it
year
was the
is
summer of 2016.
summer of 2016? Do you go
Yeah.
in with an idea for this synthetic control paper, or how does it come about?
No, no, I was just there, and then we had a few discussions. There was also Jan Spies at the time that I got to meet. He was doing his PhD. So yeah, he was also very interested in machine.
Jens
Jan
Heinmuller?
Spies.
Oh, Jens Spice was there at the same
Yeah.
time?
Yes. 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 Yes.
Oh. Oh, so you guys are talking.
Yeah. Yeah. At the time, yeah, a
Oh.
lot, quite a lot. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So tell me about this paper that ends up in the Journal of American Statistical
Yeah.
Association with Alberto.
Yeah, so I guess the starting point was like I was really interested in, how the synthetic control behaves as you add more and more data points. And also, there was like if you have a few treated unit, you you see like different kind of solution, etc. And sometimes you would find that it would be could be close to the nearest neighbor. And I thought there was a connection between synthetic control and nearest neighbor, but
Mm,
it wasn't completely clear how. And if you look at the geometry of it, you can see that sometimes the best you can do is nearest neighbor, and sometimes the nearest neighbor is not even in the synthetic control solution.
yeah, right.
So I think this paper was all started as a pretext to just study a little bit more about the property of the synthetic control solution.
How do you think of this? So, for the sake of the
Yeah,
listener, how are they supposed to think about this paper? So, you've got Alberto's original works, his
yeah,
'03, and then the follow up in 2010. What is
yeah,
supposed to be going on when they see your paper? How does it relate to this larger work? Because it's written with Alberto. He hasn't written a lot of co-authored papers on the synthetic control, up to that point, right? He's only got
yeah,
two or three others at that point that he's done. So, how are we
yeah.
supposed to be thinking of this study? How would you explain it?
So to me, it would be like more applying the synthetic control in the traditional causal inference use case. Like you have a lot of treated unit, you have a lot of observation, but you don't necessarily um, a time series in a sense. So
Oh,
synthetic control was really related to the time series. Like, the paper on the tobacco control program is like, oh, if you match those time series, it also help you match the factor structure behind it, etc. Here
yeah,
it was just like people like the synthetic control ID, they use it more and more, and not necessarily just in the context where it's natural to be used. They use it also in the regular, like large N case. And
yeah,
so what happened? Like, how close is it to ordinary least squares? How close is it to nearest neighbor matching? And how they relate to each other? I think that was kind of studying it from that angle rather than the time series
mm,
point of view.
mm. So, was that a positive? I mean, I know you're not going to say it was a negative experience, but like working with Alberto, what was that like?
It was great. No, it was
Yeah.
really amazing because I was there during the summer, and I think there was a lot less activity on American campuses during the summer. So, and also especially when he moved to MIT, and I went to visit him again. Basically, I had a little desk
Oh,
really close to his office. So basically, like every time, any time that I wanted to, I could just knock on his door and be like,
oh, I
"Oh, I have
see.
this. What do you think?" It
It's
was no,
when
it
he's
was
you get there when he's still at Harvard and then he moves
yeah,
to MIT. Oh,
yes,
I
yes,
see. Okay. And that's why you were talking with Jan Spice
yes,
because he's at Harvard
yes,
also. I
yes,
see.
exactly,
Got
yeah,
it. Got it.
yeah,
Got it.
yeah. So no, I
So,
got I think extremely lucky, yeah, that I got to meet Alberto and then really work close to him. So that was yeah, a great experience, yeah.
so how do you think that experience of working on that project with Alberto, making this publishing it very well, how do you think
Yeah.
that changed your view of yourself and what you wanted to do? Did it have a big effect on you?
Yeah, I mean that's a very good question because I mean, before your PhD, you think you're, especially if you have good grades, you think you're really good, and then you
Yeah.
start your PhD and you're like, okay, I don't know anything, and what I produce, especially when you start, like people either they don't really care about your paper or they can be very harsh. So you're like, okay,
Right.
this what I do is terrible. I'm not gonna make it, etc. But then, when I got, even before publishing the paper, presenting it, I think that was a good idea. I think people liked it. So yeah, then you're like, it gets you a bit thinking about what else you could do, etc. So I don't think that played a factor in me thinking about going to academia, but that definitely played a factor into me quitting the public sector.
Really?
Oh
Really?
yeah, yeah, because it was a terrible experience. I'm not gonna delve too much into it, but like nothing was great there. Like except my colleagues, I like my colleagues a lot, but the management, the way it was set up, I was working, but for no reason. And at some point, I was like, I'm
Mm,
30 years old. I published a good paper that people like. I have this book on machine learning for econometrics coming up, and people are excited about it. Like either I forget all of that and
right.
kind of forget about my career and just go to a job and be happy on the side, or
Yeah.
I quit and I find something a little bit more ambitious
Mm.
and yeah, and I was like, okay, that's not me, doing all that and changing my personality, so I'm gonna go somewhere else.
What year is that? You
It
brought up two
was
things. One of them is the book, and then one of them is also this kind of realization that you want something different in your life. Tell me about
yeah.
the second one, the realization. What year is that?
So it's beginning of 2021. So yeah, it was like basically it was COVID. I think it gets you thinking a lot about what you are doing with your life, etc. And also, yeah, at the time it didn't like I hated my job basically. It because what I was doing was truly useless. And I remember one conversation with kind of one of the manager at the time, and I was like, "But you understand all this money, like the taxpayer money that we spend on that?" He was like, "Yeah, we don't care about the taxpayer money." I was like, "Okay, I'm out."
Ah, I see.
So,
I see.
so yeah, that
So
was
what when you
kind of
think
the
of it
last.
as when you think of it as this was useless, when you go back to 2021 or 2020, 2021, and you think about
Yeah.
that person you were saying this is useless, what would that have person have said, I need this, and if I had this, it would be useful? What was it you were looking for that was different?
I think it was a lot at the time. It was a lot of support from the management, a lot of a sense of what we were doing was going to be used. But at the
Mm,
time, it was like, yeah, no, it was they were way behind on the technological stack. To like we were coding in Python, and they were like, there's no way we're going to use Python. There was no really understanding of machine learning in a sense. So yeah, it was yeah,
so all your skills were just wasted.
yes, yeah,
I
yeah,
see. So you go on the job market. Is that what happens in 2021? You go back on the
yeah.
economics job market?
No, no, no. So what happened is that I was making calls to friends because I had no idea what else I could do. So I called a few friends from that I met like through my PhD or at school, and I was like, "Okay, tell me about your job. Is it interesting?" Some stuff were not, and then I have this friend who's called James Ridgway, and he did his PhD in statistics a bit before I did at my PhD at CREST, and
Mm.
we had a good relationship, and he is working where I work now. And I was like, okay, tell me about your job, and that sounded really interesting, and so I applied, and then you know I was like, oh, it's kind of interesting, and then I accepted the job, and
This
very
is the
happy
job
since
you're at
then.
right now, the hedge fund?
Yes, yes,
Tell me
exactly.
about that. Tell me about that process. What made that exciting as a comparison with the civil servant job? What did you think
Yeah.
that would be like?
So I had no really idea what it would be like, but what I liked about the interview process is that they stressed a lot on the academic skills. So all the research department, it's only people who have PhD, I mean, more or less, but most of it is physics
Mm,
and a bit of mathematics, a bit of economics. But then, like when you apply, you do a little seminar where you say, okay, this is my research, my academic research. This is the paper that I wrote, etc. Like you do a little part where everybody can understand, and then you delve into more details. But
Yeah.
then I got really impressed by the depth of the knowledge of the founder. So because the founder is a guy named Jean-Philippe Bouchot. He's a well-known physicist, like in statistical physics, especially. Uh, like for people who have done physics, he's a big star. Me coming from economics, I didn't know him really. But then
Yeah.
he was asking really good and in-depth question about economics, causal inference, etc. So I was really impressed. I was like, okay, this guy, he knows, like he understands what I've done, etc. I know I'm gonna be in a place where at least I'm gonna be able to talk with people. I'm not gonna be
Mm.
lost. And so they value really also like academic skills and so yeah.
How would you explain to an economist or a PhD student or a faculty member in economics or maybe someone else? How would you explain to them, this is what I do, this is what they're looking for, this is what the skill set and the overall satisfaction is of working for a hedge fund? Because I think like a lot of listeners have gotten a little bit more familiar with the tech industry. You know, they're
Mm,
like, they're kind of aware that Amazon hires a million PhD economists, but I don't think it's as well known about this quant economist job in a
yeah,
hedge fund, except by like reputation. So like,
yeah.
what is it? How would you explain that job to other people?
I think there's a few different things you can do, but I think when you're a quantitative researcher, but mostly they would look like in terms of what an economist could do, it would be more like thinking about the market and how people trade and why
Mm.
they trade and try to find profitable strategies from that. And so there is like kind of two broad things. If you think about it, you could be like either they are like true market inefficiencies and you want to exploit them, but most likely like people, there's many people who trade on the market, many people who are out there trying to exploit that. So maybe those they are short-lived and or at least they're not going to continue for a long time. But you can also think about risk premium. You're supposed to be, compensated for taking on a risk. And
Yeah.
you can be like, oh, maybe we can build a strategy around harvesting some risk premium without it being too much risky for us or something like this. So that would be like thinking about the market, exploiting alternative data. There's a lot of data that many hedge funds buy, not just us. It could be like
Mm.
news, it could be like, credit card data, etc. And then you look at this data and you're like, okay, can it tell me something about the market value of some company? Is it going to go down, up? Is there going to be a lot more volatility or a lot less volatility or something like this? So,
So it really
like,
does use a lot of not just machine learning and econometrics, but
yeah,
understanding of economics in general plays a is a real valuable skill.
yeah, exactly. Because there's a lot of noise when you run backtest. Like backtest is basically when you want to test your strategy and see whether it makes or lose money. And so there's a lot of noise into that. So you can trust the data, but not that much. There's a lot of noise. So sometimes you can be like, okay, should maybe this work, but I don't trust it because it's not built on an effect that I really understand or something. So if you're an economist, you can really leverage that knowledge to be a bit more, rigorous about what you study and not just, you know, do everything in a data-driven way, which
Yeah,
I think is
right.
a trap.
Right. This book that you wrote though, this happens
Yeah.
before you leave while you are, when does it start? And what is, for the sake of the listener, what is this book?
Yeah. So this book is called Machine Learning for Econometrics. And so the idea is to more broadly introduce machine learning for an economics audience. But it's not like a generic book on machine learning. It's really targeted toward, if you want to do causal inference, if you want to
Mm,
study, heterogeneity of the effect. And also a big part is natural language processing, just
really?
because I think it's a lot of data that is kind of makes sense for economists to use. Like it could
Yeah,
be, central bank discourses, like
right.
anything related to a firm, etc. And so I think that's a
That's not as
natural.
common. That's not as common in these econometrics textbooks to cover natural language
No,
processing.
no, that's why it's this part is the one that is the less inspired from the economics literature. But I think economists could benefit a lot from
Yeah,
having a few ideas about that, and maybe that's going to inspire them to deal with this kind of data.
yeah.
So yeah,
When does
that's
this
why.
book, how does this book get born? This is in
Yeah,
graduate school?
yes. So with Christophe Gaillac, who's my co-author, we were in the same office when I was doing my PhD and he was doing his. And Xavier asked us to teach a class on high-dimensional econometrics. So it would,
Mm,
like at the time, it was more or less like Chernozhukov stuff, like,
yeah.
selecting your parameter, like post-selection inference, etc. And it started as that, and we incorporated more and more things. And then, like, there was this French publisher, Economica, who wanted to relaunch their book collection, and they were like, "Do you guys want to publish uh, your handout, like make it nice, etc." Because we had already like almost 200 pages at
Yeah.
that time, and
Yeah.
so what happened is that we made those handout nice, and then we added more content, and then it was in
Mm,
French. But at the time we were like, we should also publish it in English because I
yeah.
think it's going to be interesting for the like more broadly to people.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So
So
you
the
wrote
English
both
version.
editions? You wrote the French one and the English one yourselves?
Yeah. So
Wow.
the English one is mostly translation. I mean, it was a bit of a mistake because the class was in English. So we
Mm,
translated English to French and added a lot of things. And then we had to translate the French book to English. So yeah, so we did that, but we also added quite a few more content, especially like on the natural language processing side. There's gonna be a chapter on BERT and stuff like this that was
yeah.
not in the French edition.
Wow, that's
So
great. I'll put
mm,
a link to that in the Substack. Well,
yeah.
so I've gone over a little bit. I'm curious, what is it that what do you think now when you look forward? I mean, I'm not going to ask you to tell me that you're going to quit your job as a hedge at the hedge fund, but like when you think about what you're excited about, of the future, what is it you're most excited about now with where you are?
I To be honest, I think I mean, that's gonna sound a bit arrogant, but I'm thinking I'm in a very good place in life right now. I like my job a lot. I like my colleagues a lot. Like, every time I go to the office in the morning, I'm like, this is great. I like what I do.
Yeah.
So I think I look forward to, do more of the same in a sense. But
Yeah.
also, like the book is coming out in, I think it's June or July. We still have some editing to do.
Yeah.
But so, like, I'm quite excited about to see, how it's going to be received, and
Yeah.
yeah, hopefully, like people will learn from it, and
I
and
can't
yeah,
wait to see it. I can't wait to see it. That's great. Congratulations on on that. That's amazing.
thanks very much. Yeah,
Well, it's been so nice to talk. I'm really glad
thanks.
that we got to
Yeah,
meet. I really appreciate you being on the podcast.
yeah. Likewise. Yes, thanks for inviting me. It was very enjoyable. Yeah.
Good, good. Well, I'll talk to you more on LinkedIn.
Yeah, thanks a lot. See you.
See ya.
She hated when I called, but it's late. jump, I never